Hi, this is Lex Avellino, and I'm here with Ginger Malacko, the self-published author of two books, Spark and Blaze. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about building an identity as an author and how to get you and your book seen. So, Ginger, before we get started, tell me a little bit about how you got started writing children's books.
Oh, well, something I always wanted to do. And for many, many years, it was kind of one of those things like being a pop star or something.
Mm-hmm.
Great dream, totally unrealistic.
Right.
So I just kind of dabbled here and there, writing stories, thinking up ideas. And it wasn't until probably about 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, that I actually started to think about it seriously. And that's because of the way the industry has changed.
Yeah,
The technology
absolutely.
has changed. It's a different story now for anyone in a creative industry.
Yeah, definitely. As
Especially
things become more
online.
accessible.
hmm
That's great.
There's a
That's
lot
great.
more that you can do yourself. You can really take charge
Nice. And how
of.
long have you been working on the Kindled? It's Kindled, right? The Kindled series?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I got the idea for the first book, Spark, about 4 or 5 years ago, but I didn't
Cool.
start working on it seriously till probably about 3 years ago.
Nice. Was there a specific point in time, like a tool, something that you sort of became aware of that made it like, wow, this is like possible now?
Not so much at first. When I
Mm-hmm.
first finished the rough draft of the book,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't thinking about self-publishing at all.
Cool.
Didn't know anything about it. So I started off traditionally, the old school way of typing up a submission, sending
Yep.
it out to different agents
Cover
and
letter.
editors.
Goodness.
And then I came to a point where I read something just online that said that most authors, on average, are rejected 77 times
Yep.
before they're ever published. And I just got impatient.
Oh
I
yeah,
just thought,
that'll
okay,
do
I've been
it.
rejected about 20 times. I've got a long ways to go. And I just kind of looked at my different options and thought, well, wait a second, there's, Kindle and there's CreateSpace and there's Smashwords and there's all these different things that I could use to get my book out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for me, it was actually a little bit different. Even like I started my first book using a Kickstarter. Um, so again, it's one of those things where you just need a small group of people who are interested in your story, and if they're willing to support it, whether it's
Mhm.
self-publishing, crowdfunding, there's so many ways that you can publish your book without going through a big publisher now, and that's awesome. That's great.
Yes, that's another thing that I really like about the changes in the industry is it used to be so exclusive, is this writers club where the published authors all got together and the rest of us were excluded. Now there's such a huge and open community where you
Yeah.
can connect with writers of all sorts from all around the world. And I mean, I think that's key for marketing, for encouraging yourself and keeping
hmm
your spirits up.
Yeah.
Networking, it's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, the community and the networking, definitely a big part of it because, it's not just, well, I can put my book into CreateSpace and, have it delivered, one at a time. It's also, I can communicate with a whole group of people who are interested in my story, and if you can get that group of people, if you can talk to them and show them what you have, just the
hmm
way we can communicate now makes a huge difference. That's awesome. Um, Okay, so when you were first getting started, you looked into independent publishing. This looks like a viable option. Now, where was your first roadblock? Where are things like, what were some of the things that sort of got in your way in the
There
beginning?
are a lot of them.
Yeah, oh, I can imagine.
um, well, the first roadblock I ran into was budget.
Yeah,
I have none.
yep.
So that's a big concern for a lot of people when they go into
hmm
self-publishing is how much money they have available. And I haven't spent a cent.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, and I've been lucky. I've been able to manage a lot of my own marketing and things
Yeah.
that are difficult for some people, like the editing and the website design and so
hmm
forth. But that's something that every self-published author really needs to consider because there are a lot of opportunities out there if you have even a small budget.
Yeah,
Things
absolutely.
like participating in blog tours and buying reviews. Most self-published authors have to buy reviews
Right.
because that's another roadblock. There's still quite a stigma
hmm
about self-published because of the freedom for anyone to put anything out there. There's a lot of really poor writing out there, to
Yeah.
be honest. There
No,
just
yeah,
is.
absolutely.
So a lot of reviewers will not review self-published works.
hmm
And
Yeah,
a lot of
because you
them
got to go through
only
a lot of
will
stuff.
if you've hired an editor, if you've
Yeah,
been professionally edited.
gotcha.
So that's another roadblock you really have to consider. One of the ways I got around that is just reaching out to other authors who
Yep.
happen to blog
Mhm.
and trading books
Yeah.
and saying, you read mine, I'll read yours. If you
Yep.
like it, put it on your blog.
Yeah. And
Also,
that's.
librarians.
Oh yeah.
Reaching librarians directly is a huge bonus. It's an entirely other network that's
Yeah.
huge, and you can really get your book to many people that way.
And people that are passionate about books too. You know what I mean? These aren't just
Mhm.
any old reader. This is someone who's invested a good bit of time in specifically getting people into reading.
Mhm.
That's great. So when they see somebody who's actually writing books for this age group or for these people, that's awesome. That's a good idea. And that's another way that the ease of communication nowadays, whether it's Facebook groups or an email list, it's so easy to put these things together in this day and age with the tools that we have.
Mhm.
There's almost no reason. That's Pippa the husky.
Mhm.
There's almost no reason, that we can't have access to a bunch of people who will review a book, and if you have any sort of blog, any sort of Facebook page where people are following you, you put out a post that says, hey, first 10 people to shoot me an email will get a free copy in return for, an honest review of the book, and you've got people being active, getting involved in what you're doing, and it's just so much easier to reach your fans that way. So that's great. That's awesome.
And it is important to try and go straight for the fans, too. I know in my
Right.
situation, because I write for children, there are actually a growing number of child bloggers
Yeah.
who
Oh,
just
yeah.
review books. And it's an amazing opportunity to get them directly to the readers. So, you go for those sci-fi readers that blog or the mystery
Yep.
readers that blog. You can go directly to them.
Yeah. That's absolutely one of the most important points is finding out who your audience is. Who's reading your books? Is it
Yep.
those, you have that sci-fi niche? Is it, going to be a specific age level? Is it
Mhm.
boys, girls, both? Like, who's reading your book?
Yep.
No, that's awesome. So cover designs. This is one of the things that really interested me when I first saw your books. Was I was
Mhm.
like, okay, clearly a self-published author, but her website. Oh, we'll talk about that later. But the website, the book specifically, look great. So tell me a little about you. You did the cover design yourself, right?
I did. I
Yes. Tell
did.
me a little bit about that process. What that was like. What it took
Well,
to do
I'm
it.
very fortunate in that I have a background in lifestyle and commercial blogging.
Right.
So I'm comfortable with working on a website.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with laying things out and doing logos and finding fonts and things like that. So that did make it a lot easier for
Good.
me.
Good.
But when I first published, I had a different cover.
Mm-hmm.
And I had approached an art teacher actually about working with me on the cover. And I love what she did. And it was so representative of my personal style.
Yeah.
It was pretty, it was very textural,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved that. But I
Yeah,
made
that
the
was the one with the
mistake.
eye, right?
Yeah, I made the
Yeah.
mistake of designing a cover to appeal to myself.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it wasn't so much appealing to a 10-year-old child.
Right.
And that's my target audience. So
Good point.
once I kind of figured that out, I needed to decide on how I could balance them. My
Mm-hmm.
personal style and things that I love and what would appeal to my market audience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually talked to some kids. They wanted to see the hero on the cover.
Yeah.
So I just worked with it and
Yeah.
put something together, and they really responded to it, so we went with that.
That's awesome. And it seems so simple. But, honestly, if you do want to find out best what works for your books, talk to the people who are going to be reading it. And that's a great idea. I had a friend who started a business, and he took his list of name ideas to a bunch of his close friends and was like, which one do you like best? And they, pointed and he, gave tallies to each name. And by the end of the week, he had, a list full of names with, different scores. But what they didn't know was that wasn't really the point. What he did was then he went back to his people and said, which one do you remember? And I always thought that was really cool because, they look at this list and they think, this is the one that's going to be, best. This is the best name. But what he just wanted to know was, after looking at that list, what do they remember a week later? So,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
One thing I'd add to that is you have to make sure you love it.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're targeting to a specific type of reader, you have to yourself love it, because you're not going to feel confidence in it if there are things about it that you don't like. And you have to be totally confident to market your book as a self-published author.
You never want to undersell your work, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone else is going to try and undersell you because, it's self-published, so you've got to see. And that's why I think there's a huge, that's why I think, honestly, I thought really highly of your books when I first saw them, is because it looks professional. And it's not that complicated. We'll put, we'll in the final video, we'll show the cover.
Okay.
So everyone can see it, because, honestly, it's relatively simple in design, but they have, a consistent feel. There's certain elements in it I thought were really great, that unify everything, like the triangles that appear on both the books. Super simple design concept, and yet, it gives you that mental feeling of, the fire, the kindle, the blaze, the spark, and it makes the books feel like one, so that when someone sees those, they're like, oh, that's another one of, Ginger's books. That's another one of the Kindled books, and so they can recognize, and so you start to build an image as an author, and you want people to be able to recognize your books when they see them, so that they can support you. There's this feeling of, camaraderie, because, it's not just a bunch of books, but it's, this sort of this whole thing. That's great.
Yes.
So your books definitely show your branding and your style. What do you think are some other areas where you've used that kind of mentality of sort of trying to bring your image or your style to different parts of what you do as an author?
Everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything.
That's what I like
consistent.
To hear. That's
My
great.
website, anything that I make, any promotional materials, any events that I participate in, I focus really on that brand, because if you think about it, a traditional publisher, that's what they do. Random House focuses on their Random House brand. Hyperion focuses on the Hyperion brand. When you're a self-publisher, you are your own business.
Yep.
So you have to have a brand. And what I did with all of my designs is I created a design pool where I chose, I think I've got 5 different fonts, a few different colors, a few different shapes, a few different patterns, things that all go together and can interchange.
Yeah.
And if you go to anything that I do, you will see those consistent patterns with colors, with textures, with the design.
You
and then I can add things, I can take things away, I can change things, but I have that consistent pool of imagery that I can draw from, and that will always be something that I do. I mean, I'm working on another book now that's quite different from the first 2 as far as story and characterization. But there are going to be consistencies with the design. It's going to look different, but consistent, so that people can still draw parallels between everything that I do. Yeah,
absolutely. And that point you made about, as a self-published author, you are your own business. Some people look at that and there's, the stigma of, well, I'm not doing this for a business, because I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it to, to spread this story, or to give people, good reading. And that's fantastic, and that's what I want to hear. But if you want that story to spread, if you want to reach more people with your story, whether or not you're interested in the money, you've got to be able to reach those people skillfully, and that's why, these big publishers do what they do, is to reach those people. Now, of course, they are in it for the money as well, but they're also very effective in getting to the readers. And that's what we have to do as self-publishers. You've got to be all those things for yourself. Now, of course, some people are going to, and I would highly advise anyone, if you're not a graphic designer, if you're not an artist, find people to work with, whether you're using, and I've mentioned this on my site numerous times, whether it's Upwork is a great site, Freelancer, or Fiverr, great places to find freelance artists who will do, good work for a very reasonable price. Or, if you're able to work alongside somebody, but find someone who knows what they're doing to help you, and fill in the blanks where you don't have those skills, because these things are so important to be able to get the book out there. Yeah. So what are some other than just, branding, we talked about, having, a sort of cohesive image. You want to find out what are your, I like the way you put it, having that pool of things to draw from. So you put into this pool some fonts that will go on all your books, some, and even the authors I've worked with doing cover design and illustration work, some of the more successful ones, they have, well, I need you to use this font, or I need you to use this style, these like symbols, because that's what people know when they think this author, or when they see these symbols, they think, oh, that's her, and it's familiar. It creates loyalty. So yeah, but beyond just the images and stuff like that, what are some other things you do to connect with your audience to sort of stand out as an author?
Well, really the key is to personalize everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the world that we live in right now is very much into personal details through
Yep.
social media, through your website, Facebook, all of those things. Is people, they want to see you. They want to hear things that you're doing. They want more insight into your work and into who you are. So personalizing everything. I use a lot of pictures.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of my best little tips for anyone in their marketing. Get good pictures. And if you can't take them, find someone who can. I mean, photography is such a popular hobby these days. Guaranteed you know a couple people who like to take pictures and who could just take nice product shots of your book. Or, just I can take pictures myself.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly putting new pictures on my website because it's great for my readers just to see what it's like to be a writer, to see who I am, what I like. It also helps with the branding because even in my pictures, I'm seeking out colors and things that go with my brand. So pictures is key. Also, one thing that I use for my website is a lot of clickables, a lot of buttons to click on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because when people go to websites, they're ready to explore.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see different things. I've seen so many people who have done absolutely nothing with their website. They have great books, great writing, but their website is so generic. And there's nothing to it, it's a page, maybe two. And if you can think of just even links to things that are interesting to you that have to do with your book. If you write historical fiction, there are a lot of places that you can link to or things that you can show. I mean, for mine, because I appeal to kids, I have sketches that they can click to or, place where they can ask my character questions. Mm-hmm. Just any little thing to get people to come and stay.
Yeah.
And look at your stuff. And if you make it personable, they will.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely key. I think a lot of what you're saying, it revolves around this idea of, you're a writer and you're creating stories, but even in the way that you present yourself, you're creating, in some ways, another story. And you tell that story through Twitter, you tell it through Facebook and the posts, the pictures. People want to see this is a real person creating real stories. It's a story that creates stories. They don't come from nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And when one of my biggest tips or my biggest pieces of advice for writers is to get away from your computer.
Yeah.
And to get out in the world and do things. And it's great when you get to go out and meet people, you need to have a place to send them back to. That's why I think a website is so important. Because a lot of times if you're meeting someone at a bookstore, at a library, at an event, you've got a minute, to impress them and to engage with them. And it's great to say, go to my website and have something interesting for them. Mm-hmm. So they work together. You really want to use your online presence and your real life presence.
Right. And keep directing people back and forth, Yes. Online, here's what I'm doing at the local library. At the library, hey, check out all this other stuff I have online. And it becomes a circle to keep people engaged. Because that's what it's all about, is creating an experience,
Exactly.
Find different ways to spend time with your reader, even if you're not physically present. Great, be present when you can, but, we have, an online persona that can, spend time with people while we're, busy writing the next book or, doing whatever it is that we have to do as authors.
And this is not limited to self-published either. I mean, one thing I didn't realize is even if you're published by a traditional publisher, you have your contract, your book is in stores, unless you're a bestseller, they're not marketing you.
Right.
You don't get a book tour. Mm-hmm. And you still have to do all those things yourself. Your website and finding ways to reach your readers. So this is really important for all writers.
Yeah. So great.
And it's surprisingly easy.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly easy. If you look around your own community, how many opportunities you would have as a writer to participate in all kinds of things. Or you call up a school or a college and you just say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a local author and I'm available and willing to come to the classroom
Right.
to meet with writers groups or book clubs. Most people have no idea how many local authors are in their community, so, they're not out searching for you. You need to go to
Right.
them.
Absolutely. And when you can come there with a physical book, I put this out, even though there, access to these resources, being able to get your book printed is so readily available, it's still sort of a novelty um, to be able to bring, a book that you wrote, your name's on it, especially if you do a good job designing it. To be able to hold that and say, people still look at that and say, like, whoa, like, this is a published author, like, that's kind of great. And when you're there in person with a book in hand and you've got these experiences and story to tell people, the fact that you're self-published sort of loses some of its effect on people, and it's just, this person created a story, and no, that's great. I think in a lot of ways, self-published authors sometimes forget the power they have when they engage their audience or when they engage people who are interested in this, area.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to work to have that engagement or else it's not going to be there.
You have to take some initiative
Yeah.
and just think on your feet. One of my greatest marketing tools that just happened a week ago, it's called the MG Book Bomb.
Right.
MG stands for middle grade, which is my genre.
Mm-hmm.
And must have been about a year and a half ago, I was on Twitter and saw some young adult fiction authors posting this book drop thing, posting pictures of them dropping their books in their community for writers or readers to find.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, what a great idea. There's got to be something for younger kids.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I started one.
Yeah.
And last year, I had just a handful of authors scattered around who participated. I had about 3 times as many this year. I'm hoping to get about 100 next year.
Nice.
But the point is, it cost me nothing. It took very little time for me to organize. And really, if no other author in the world participated, it turned out to be a very effective marketing tool in my town. I mean, last week,
Absolutely.
I had kids running around this town trying to find my books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what more
And
could you
now I
want?
have people who didn't find them who are wanting to know where to get them.
Right. That's so great. Because they got their
I
kids searching
organized
for
this
it.
huge global event.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if anyone else participates but me.
Right. Right. That's really
so it's
great.
amazing what you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And just using simple tools like, I saw, I follow your Twitter. And so, I saw, the hashtag MGBookBomb. And, someone clicks on that and they see the whole story, Here's another instance of how we create stories,
Yes.
And you've got, that post, the article you put up about, your interaction with the people who found your book. There's another story, And so this is what we're doing even when we're not writing, middle grade fiction, it's reality, this is nonfiction. And it's just other ways that we create stories and ways to engage people. And something simple like creating a hashtag or, and now we've got them on Facebook too. Helps people to connect, like this is a thing, this is happening. And you've also got like your graphics to the MG Book Bomb, and that's another thing that's going to stand out. And so when people see that, like, oh, this is a thing, this happens, and so it's easier for other authors to get on board. You provided all those graphics for them to use on their sites as well. Yeah, no, that's really great.
Yeah, it's visuals. That's another roadblock for a lot of people. And it was for me too. I'm not naturally a computer person.
Right.
I have to work really hard at it.
I feel
But to understand the technical side of things is so important. Just to even know how to put together a simple blog.
Right.
I mean, the design program that I use cost me $10. It's like the most basic design program ever, and yet I can put together little logos and buttons with it.
Yeah.
So start to kind of figure out how to do all those things. And if you really struggle, again, reach out to your friends and your family. There are people with computer skills that you know that can help you do simple things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's great. Okay, so just to wrap up a little bit, for you personally, what do you think, I like to ask authors this, is what's the next step for you? Basically, what do you think is the next thing, the next progress point, the next benchmark that's going to, push you further into your writing career?
Oh, well, I think to answer that, I mean, you really need to kind of measure your priorities,
Sure. What are your goals?
what you expect,
Yep.
and I mean, I think probably the big picture, I'd like to become a bestseller in Canada, which means I
Nice.
have to sell 5,000 copies.
Nice.
So that is definitely a goal of mine.
That's awesome.
And also, I just really want to hone the things that I'm able to do. I want to make the covers better. I want to make my
Right.
book trailers better. I want to do a lot more with my website. And I haven't had the opportunity to get into a lot of schools yet.
Yeah.
So I think that is the next thing this fall will be my goal, to get into as many schools in my region as possible.
That's awesome. I think honestly that's the most important part, is just setting these goals. Because if you don't have something you're reaching for, chances are you're always going to be staying in the same place. So even just having goals like that, knowing, where am I headed, just allows you to reach for something to begin
So
moving forward.
one other thing I'd like to point out though too is I've talked to a couple different agents, and they all told me the same thing, is that the agents and the editors now are really starting to pay attention to self-published authors, because what's attractive about a self-published author is if they get signed, they come with a fan base already in place.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
if you can self-publish and do a good job with your website and creating a fan base and getting noticed, you are much more attractive to a traditional publisher that way.
And here's the
So
thing.
if your goal is down the line to get picked up and to be in all the bookstores, you can work towards that by self-publishing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the goal is ultimately, for all of us who are writing, is to be writers. We're looking to continue writing stories, and whatever can free us up to do that most is what's best. And, I think that's been the goal of self-publishers since, it started as being, the movement, is to be able to write and for people to read it. Because, the whole goal was to be able to skip the middleman, the editor, the publisher, the agent, whoever it was who was keeping us from getting our book to readers. And now, if we work hard at doing this, like you said, you can use those people to propel yourself sort of into the next step. It's not, you're not copping out of your commitment to writing.
No,
you're just,
not at all.
Propelling yourself into that next stage, which allows you, if you got somebody else helping you with this process. I mean, hopefully you've had people helping you all along, whether it's an artist, an illustrator, cover designer, editor, whoever it is who helps you, maybe it's just your beta readers. And, this is just, a new phase of, people who are able to help you continue focusing on your writing. And that's fantastic, because self-publishers, it totally makes sense that, an agent or a publisher would begin taking interest in these people, because if they're doing well, they're doing it well all by themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is somebody who knows their genre, they know their skill set, and they're pushing that forward, on their own steam. And that's got to be something impressive for an agent and somebody who's going to be valuable to have. So,
absolutely.
That's great. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to be able to hear more about what you're doing, Ginger. And guys, if you're interested in seeing more of Ginger's work, you can head over to gingermalacko.com.
It's just Ginger Malacko.
gingermalacko.com. And the Facebook page is Ginger Malacko.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you can find her on Facebook. You can find her on Twitter. Same as the Facebook, right? Ginger Malacko?
Yes.
Yeah. Or gingermalacko.com. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I hope this was helpful. Take care.
Thank you so much, Lex.
Okay. See ya.